Secrets of a Realm has been made possible by our generous patrons. Support the channel and become a patron today at patreon.com/SpeakersXIV. Thank you. The year is 1572 of the 6th Astral Era. Despite the rest of the realm's growing panic due to Dalamud's ever-increasing presence in the sky, Coerthas, more specifically Ishgard, remains calm. Dragon activity has plummeted to an all-time low. That's good news to Ishgardians, who are still struggling with their Dragon Song war. For adventurers still locked out of Ishgard's safe walls, Coerthas was the only flavor of Ishgard they'd get. For the most part, it was a barren, hostile, and cold mountainous wasteland. As 1.0's development neared its end, it would become the home to two of the game's most iconic dungeons, Aurum Vale and Samael Darkhold. What adventurers didn't know was that Coerthas held more secrets than most regions of Eorzea. In addition to the Aurum Vale and Samael, she'd also hold the Fess and Henger's Crucible, and a third hidden dungeon, the focus of this episode of Secrets of a Realm. Located in the Western Highlands, just north of the lands, was a cave opening guarded by an elezen named Hersande, who would tell any passing adventurers the following. Dragon activity has lessened recently, leading us to believe that the creatures may be contriving something ill, hoping that we grow complacent in the meanwhile. Until we discover their motives, the Aery will remain off-limits to all but those authorized by the Holy See. The Aery, that's how it's spelled in-game, and I don't know what it means. None of my dictionaries have been of any particular help. I'm tempted to say it's a misspelling of Aery, but the name does say Aery, so that's what we're going with. Going off what the guard is telling us, there are creatures inside, most likely dragons, that are planning something horrible, and the cave has been closed off until they've figured out what's going on. Now that's intriguing. To make it even more interesting, the entrance had a double failsafe, a level 75 plus bomb, a Furoboros, to discourage adventurers from attempting to enter the cave. And let me remind you that level 50 was the level cap in 1.0. Now let's take a look inside. The dungeon seems to be located right below the Slate Mountains, as indicated by the overworld map before it switches to the blank dungeon map. The tunnel goes down deep, which again tells us that we're in for some pretty big and open rooms, hopefully. After crossing the invisible barrier, the color palette changes to the usual grayish color used in all dungeons of Coerthas, and the descent just keeps going. Down and down we go. I think we can safely say that this is the deepest dungeon we've ever entered at this point. Boy, this is far down. What are they hiding down here? Eventually I come to an abrupt stop as I notice a faint light at what I assume to be the end of the descent. Okay, we're about to encounter something man-made. Here we go. This is one of the doors used in Samael Darkhold, the Fess and Henger's Crucible, as boss room doors, but not only is this placed at the very beginning of the dungeon proper, it's open. The fire was never placed in the braziers, but the light still flickers as if they're there. This is fascinating already. The room opens up to the usual boss room seen oh so many times before in Coerthan dungeons, but I notice another flicker in light, leading to yet another open circular door. If you've been following this series for a while, I hope you understand why this is so exciting. So far in Coerthas dungeons, there's very little man-made stuff until you reach the end or at least midway into the dungeon. Maybe you see a few wooden beams, perhaps a closed wooden door here and there, but never anything like this. The already open door implies that someone has already been in here, or perhaps someone is trying to lure us in. Past the door, I find myself at a junction. One path going west, and the path I'm going south. Going south just leads to an empty room, so I have no choice but to head west. This path leads me further down into the darkness. After another long descent, I notice an opening with a slight glow of light flickering in the distance. It looks like a giant open room ahead. I pass through. Wow. A large room, similar to that of 1.0's male Darkhold greets me. The braziers are not actually lit, but they all have the light glow coming off them. Waterfalls, a river, a bridge. After the short walk in the dull grey tunnels, this is a very welcome change. I can see why we were headed so far down. This room is huge. Also worth noting that the flameless yet bright braziers also had the sound effects on them. Just listen. I don't know what that tells you about the state of completion of this dungeon, but it's the first unfinished dungeon from Coerthas I've been in where the braziers were actually giving off any kind of light like this. I cross the bridge and enter the grey tunnels. Another lit door greets me. So far, I've had very little time to get bored. This dungeon is playing with my curiosity. The next room isn't helping. This is what looks like a large NM or boss room. We've seen variations of this room before. It's pretty in its own right, with tiny waterfalls, small puddles of water, and whatever these bushes are, but my eyes are drawn to this door, which is closed. The room has two exits, and this closed door might have required something for it to be opened. Maybe something that could be found in the other open exit? I decided to check it and find out. As I proceed down the tunnel, I notice something odd. As I pass by this wall, it seems to be loading in the lighting. Now, that's another first for an unused dungeon. As I pass it, the light disappears again. Was this supposed to trigger something that's not been placed yet? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. After a short descent, I pass through a large opening and... what the heck? Oh my gods, what am I looking at? Another large room with waterfalls and large stone stalagmites, but most importantly, this thing. At first I thought it was a broken bridge, but it has a very clear and defined endpoint with this round emblem on the floor. This path abruptly ends here, so I have no choice but to turn back. I make haste to the closed door from before and pass through it. I expected it to lead me to the bridge, but I kept descending further and further down. I think we're about to go below it. As I progress deeper and deeper into the darkness, I make it to another large room. The large room has several exits. I'm noticing that my client begins to lag slightly, as if it's trying to load something, or perhaps it's already loading something in the background. I decide to keep moving forward, picking the exit directly facing me. I enter another large room. There seems to be a giant rock formation in front of me and waterfalls on both sides, but the path ends abruptly again. Whatever was here and whatever is trying to load in is long gone or never placed. I'm still getting some lag in this area, so I move out quickly. I return to the big room and I enter the south-facing exit. I'm surprised to see that this path actually leads upwards. Very rare, seeing as every other path I've chosen so far has led down. After what felt like an eternity, I reach another large room. Now this time, what looks like an overpass with a missing bridge. The room has waterfalls and these weird stalagmites with peculiar shapes. Using my god powers, I try to walk over to the other side, but it's not solid. We're not meant to pass here. I notice that this large room has several openings in them. I spot the path we came from down below. I decide to turn back and return to the large room with the many exits. I head through the second to last unexplored exit in the room, the northeastern path. I can't really put into words how large this dungeon is. I'm planning on going through this dungeon in a Patreon exclusive Return to SoaR stream to just show how big this thing is, but for now you're just gonna have to take my word on how long, how big this dungeon is. After an eternity of walking, I see light in the distance. I'm starting to suspect that I've somehow picked the linear path now, and before I could think any further, I see this. This is the same stuff we found in Henger's Crucible, and as I pass through the door, oh my god, it's almost the same room. I'd also like to address the video I did on Henger's Crucible. In the comments, you guys mentioned that it was very likely dragon eggs, and I think I agree, and I think this might be confirming that. The guard mentioned the dragons being down here, and this could be some sort of hatching ground. Another well-lit closed door beckons on the other side of the room. I pass it and follow the path. It leads upwards for a while, and I eventually end up in another large room, but unlike the other times, I have a path to follow to my right. Although the room itself has very little going on, it's still an impressive design. It gives you that feeling of being so small, the surroundings being so massive. It's almost a bit frightening, even without the dragons and monsters. I make it back to the large room. The last northern exit remains. I start walking. It leads me upwards. I see light in the distance. Could this be it? Finally, we make it back into the room with a strange symbol on the ground. I can't really recognize it from anywhere, but my gods, is this a cool find. Could it have been meant to serve as a teleport pad or a summoning altar? I see more braziers lit, leading down to another bridge. This is in one piece and leads to another tunnel. And this is where things start to get a little bit confusing. I thought I was on the linear path again, but this tunnel eventually leads to the bigger room again. The room with the weird symbol has a lot of paths, which all seem to lead to areas I've been to before. After about half an hour of running through tunnels leading to random points in the large room I had been to so many times before, I decided to leave the room behind. The lower area leads nowhere. It's possible the pad was meant to teleport the player out of the dungeon, or to a different area. We just don't know. I walk all the way back out of the large room with the exits. On my way back, I pick a random path. I keep walking, expecting to see nothing but rooms that I've seen a million times before. But then, there in the distance, I see a towering structure in what seems to be a giant room. A green, mossy rock formation with bushes growing out of it. I can't believe I missed this. As I stand there in awe at a simple mossy rock piece, I notice its inhabitants, hawks or eagles flying around the structure. Possibly their home. What a fitting end to a dungeon so infested with dead things. Just some happy living birds doing bird things around a mossy rock. Maybe this is what gave name to the whole dungeon, the Aery. Either misspelled or simply made unique by the Ishgardians. Maybe that's what they call it in Eorzea. Who knows? The story of the dungeon is difficult to pinpoint. It's all over the place, but the doors and braziers do shed some light, literally, on what might have happened. Something has made it inside the dungeon. Whoever or whatever it is has also lit the braziers. We can't really tell who it is, but perhaps they are tied to the symbol on the ground. I can't seem to find any sources that can explain what it means, but they do look eerily similar to the patterns found in Dravanian designs. We can't ignore the similarity in name to the Aery. This could have been intended to introduce the adventurers to Ishgard's dragon storyline, perhaps as a lead-in to what would become the 1.0 version of Heavensward. We can only speculate, of course, so please leave your speculations in the comments section below. We've reached the end of the episode, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next month with another episode of Secrets of a Realm. Until then, may you ever walk in the light of the crystal.